This is the title of my presentation this morning. Well, Joanne has mentioned it. I'm going to talk to you about my research with older women and homelessness. Our research team includes women with lived experience, includes partners from the Community Social Planning Council and the Greater Victoria Coalition to End Homelessness, a number of research assistants and associates, master's and PhD students and others, as well as university faculty members from nursing, sociology, and geography. My goals today are, first of all, to ask you, if you could, to think about ideas that we have related to home and to belonging and what they mean to us. And planting these ideas in your head to think about what it might be like to not have a home, to not have a place to go to on a regular basis. So I'm going to talk to you today about what we have learned so far about older women and experiences of homelessness, and consider how a life course perspective helps us to explore and understand experiences of homelessness. Talk a little bit about pathways into and out of homelessness for older women. So the Canadian Observatory on Homelessness defines homelessness as the situation of an individual, family, or community without stable, safe, permanent, appropriate housing or the immediate prospect, means, and ability of acquiring it. As you can appreciate, our estimates suggest that on any given year, there are 150 to 300,000 people who are homeless, but it's very difficult to get an actual count because of the nature of being without a home. In Canada, homelessness increased fourfold in the past 2 decades in urban centres and among older adults. Older adults are one of the fastest groups, especially older women. Housing first policies are in place in most jurisdictions. And this is the idea that we should, wherever possible, begin by putting a roof over individuals' heads, but it doesn't need to and it can't stop there. We also have to move further with getting the wraparound services and supports around women to have them be successful in exiting homelessness. We know that older adults in general have many identities. Older women who are homeless are the same. And we know that homelessness is invisibilized, stigmatized, and marginalized for older women. We don't expect older people to find themselves in these circumstances at this stage of their lives. So this picture or figure comes from the State of Women's Housing Need and Homelessness in Canada from 2020. It shows, again, ideas about the hidden homelessness of women. And I wanted to read the sentence at the bottom for you, which says, while we may imagine homelessness as the person asking for change on the street corner, women's homelessness is often hidden behind closed doors. It includes couch surfing with friends, trading sex for housing, or living in a tiny overcrowded apartment or car even at times. From the Victoria homelessness point in time count from 2020, 1,523 people were surveyed. 33% of them were women, 49% were over the age of 50, 23% were Indigenous, which is a strong overrepresentation among the homelessness population. People who are Indigenous, they're only 5% of the general population. The average age of first homelessness for women is 41, and 38% of women experienced homelessness for the first time at age 50. In the last line, I have some percentages of the population who have substance use issues, mental health issues, illnesses and conditions, etc. And I thought that it is important to mention that sometimes by raising these kinds of statistics, we contribute to the stigma. We think, oh, these people have real problems in society. And we don't think, what is it that has caused them to have substance use issues or mental health issues and illnesses and conditions? We know that people who are homeless age much more rapidly than others. So the purpose of this study is guided by the following objectives: to build evidence to understand experiences of housing insecurity for older women in Victoria, to share their stories with one another so they see that they do have some common and unique links with other individuals. They're not alone in their experiences. To share these experiences with decision makers, and the reason being so that we can guide system improvements and enhance wraparound care for women. We're using a life course perspective, which is a very meaningful theoretical lens for helping us understand women's experiences. A life course perspective takes account of the fact that we live our lives in certain environments with physical, cultural, social attributes. We live them within families, so our lives are linked to one another. We experience life across historical time. So what happens in one generation doesn't necessarily happen in other generations. And also what happens earlier in life influences our experiences later in life. This research project uses what we call community-based participatory action research, which means our partners are involved in every step of the process, ideally helping us to guide the research questions and the findings and the strategies that we use to share and disseminate our results. At this moment in time, we've done a certain number of interviews with women with lived expertise of housing insecurity, and we've held interviews with service providers as well. Just to give you an idea of some of the service providers that we've interviewed, people from Kool-Aid, Our Place, Bridges for Women, Mustard Seed, etc. We've done about 23 interviews with service providers, the majority of whom are managers and supervisors or outreach workers. We've also done about 18 or 19 interviews with women, so this particular table is a little bit out of date. And these women live in assisted living environments, supportive housing, sheltering hotels, etc. For the most part, if you look at this housing continuum, the women that we have interviewed and engaged with are mostly situated at the far left side. They live in social housing. They live in emergency shelters, transitional supportive housing, and supportive subsidized housing. Some of them have found their way into below market rental housing and one or two into the rental market. But for the most part, we're talking about women who have low income and who live in social housing environments. Prior to beginning this particular research project, we undertook a literature review, and this work was done by Lauren Cuthbertson, Kelly Stadjahar, and myself. We wanted to understand from the research literature, what are the pathways into homelessness for older women? And what we found initially, I'm going to take you through this from the top to the right, is that there are essentially two distinct pathways into homelessness. There's what we call the gradual entry of women who cycle in and out of homelessness at different points in their lives. And then there is a rapid entry path, which again, we're finding that more older women are entering homelessness in this rapid way because of their inability to stay in their current home environments, as well as other factors. Some of the things that precipitate homelessness are personal factors like health problems, mental health problems, financial problems, adverse life events, trauma, and intimate partner violence. There are often, precipitating events, precipitating events that are related to loss, such as the death of a loved one, relationship breakdowns, renovictions, loss of employment, etc. We know that older adults have some unique characteristics, that they are, again, an increasingly growing segment of the homeless population, that they experience tremendous premature aging and mortality. Age 50 would be old if you have been living on the street for many years of your life, versus 65 as the age of entering seniorhood for for most of us. Again, there's a lot of stigma associated with being an older adult who is homeless. There are a lot of service challenges and barriers in the system. At the moment, there's a lack of affordable housing, services, specialized services, trauma-informed and culturally sensitive services are not available in the numbers that are needed. There's a resistance among older women sometimes to ask for help as well, and sometimes a lack of awareness of the services that are available. I wanted to share with you just some anecdotes, quotations from the research that we've done. And at the moment, we've been exploring issues of home and identity, like that question I posed for you at the very beginning. So here are some of the quotations from the women that we've interviewed. A home means a key to the front door, where I can walk through my own front door. I don't even have that here. I have to be buzzed in by someone in the office. If there's no one in the office, we wait outside. I'd like a key to my front door, not an electronic fob with a 5-second delay. I would like a bathtub and a closet for my clothes. A bathtub, a closet, a kitchen sink, a key to my own front door, and I would call that my home. That's from a woman in supportive housing, a single room occupancy place. I'm just going to read the last one now too, in the interest of time. Housing is more than housing. Housing without community is simply existing. It's surviving. It's being in a place that's not being rained on. It's a slightly better cardboard box. So the sense of belonging that would give me the sense of being home is almost entirely lacking from my life. And that's an essence of being home, belonging somewhere. This is from a woman in temporary subsidized housing. So just in terms of discussing these results, it's quite challenging to understand and map the shelter and housing continuum in Victoria and other jurisdictions. So we've spent a fair amount of time trying to get our heads around how the system functions and what the possible housing environments for older women are. We know that our women with lived experience and our service provider insights are aligning quite well, but women experience a lot of difficulties with navigating the service system for themselves. We can think about them having stacked or layered vulnerability. If you think about the childhood Jenga game and all of the intersections in our lives that come from thinking about life through the life course lens, women's age, gender, health status, trauma they've experienced, lower income are like this house of blocks. And if you pull one or two things out the bottom, they get into difficulty and become either a rapid entry into homelessness or experience that chronic cycling in and out of homelessness. These experiences, as we note, are not linear. We can't think that women, once they have a roof, once housing first, being put into a situation of shelter is not the only answer, is not the complete answer. They still need wraparound services and supports. There are many barriers in the system in terms of inadequate housing choices for women, in terms of prohibitive system navigations, forms that have to be filled in, references that have to be gotten. They make it very difficult for women to navigate and move through the system in a timely and effective way. We kind of think of this as the homelessness industrial complex, which is a word coined by some researchers to describe the fact that at this moment in time, the homelessness system is very large and very complicated and perhaps operates in a manner that perpetuates itself rather than reduces the need for the system. So we call that the homelessness industrial complex. Exiting from homelessness, a number of variables have to come together. In the experiences of women, what we have found them say often is that they really had to hit rock bottom and decide that they could no longer stay there, or be told from someone that they were going to die if they continued on this pathway. So they have to hit the lowest place of their lives often. They have to be connected to a personal advocate or social network or champion or someone who listens to them at that point in their lives. They have to be offered certain services that come in at the time they need them to move them forwards and give them hope. We are moving towards some solutions in our research project right now. Again, we appreciate housing first, and we agree that women need a shelter, they need a home to begin with, and then we need to ensure that the wraparound care and supports are in place for them. We need a wide range of service environments, independent, supportive, and sometimes communal, co-op types of living environments for women. They need access to both private spaces and also spaces where they can be socially feel a sense of belonging and connectedness. There is a tremendous need in the system for more trauma-informed counseling, substance use services, access to healthcare, doctors, physicians, long-term care programs, training opportunities, computer and phone access opportunities, etc. Women need access also to low barrier and high barrier options. This means if they have substance use issues, they need access to those forms of care. But there are many challenges for women who sometimes get placed in environments where there are a lot of substance users and they're not part of that group. This is what we talk about of trying to find the right fit for women as well. It's not just enough to have a roof. The place that they go has to support who they are, that piece about identity again. As we get older, many women need an elevator, they need a wheelchair, they need ramps to access various housing environments. Sometimes this will be the reason they're not placed in the right environment for them, because certain places don't have these features. Within the system, there also needs to be a sense that if there's nowhere else for a woman to transition into, they should be able to stay longer. So this again comes back to we need more options for the various circumstances and situations women find themselves in. There needs to be attention also to person-centered care, the customization of environments, women being able to bring in their own possessions. In many environments now, people are only allowed 1 or 2 Rubbermaid type totes. That's all they can bring to certain settings, even though the possessions that they have are so important to their identity. Thank you. As I've already mentioned and emphasized, there needs to be more access to trauma-informed and culturally sensitive care. And there needs to be attention on the ways that we can enhance humanity and dignity of individuals rather than require them to get into long lineups where they might not ever get a meal, which require them to fill out forms and then be told they're not eligible for a certain environment. We have to do a lot more within the system to help women where they're at. Final steps and thoughts. What is needed to affect change? We need more housing and more supportive services, that idea of the right fit for women. And where is the place we're at right now? We're working on mobilizing, well, actually we're working on deepening our analyses of the interview transcripts that we have, but also in knowledge mobilization, sharing our findings, as I mentioned at the outset, with older women and service providers, creating a street survival guide or resource booklet for women, age 50 plus, developing as many recommendations as we can for quick wins, positive system level changes. And we're also working on arts-based healing. How do we work with women to promote their hope and healing? And the last piece is to remind us that nobody chooses homelessness. It's not a choice that people willingly say, this is what I want for my life. And that's important for us to keep in mind in humanizing these individuals.